When Lauren Agee, a 21-year-old college student in Tennessee, made plans with an acquaintance to attend Wakefest in July of 2015, she was excited to party and have fun with friends. Under the notion that the girls would be staying in a cabin on the lake, Lauren was surprised to find out upon arrival that they would be meeting up with Hannah's boyfriend and some of his friends, and they would be all sleeping outdoors at a hard-to-reach campsite on a cliffside. To top it off, she was expected to share a hammock with a guy she didn't even know. When Lauren supposedly went missing in the middle of the night, none of her so-called friends were worried or even tried to find out where she may have gone. When her body was discovered in a hidden cove by fishermen later that evening, the so-called friends' behavior began to be called into question and was extremely suspicious to the off-duty police who were working security and had responded to the discovery. But the police handling the case quickly ruled Lauren's death an accident, although they are the only ones buying the so-called friends' ever-changing stories. What really happened to Lauren on the cliff that night in July? Will her loved ones ever get the truth? You're listening to Creep It Real, and today we cover the extremely suspicious death of 21-year-old Lauren Taylor Agee.
Creep It Real is a weekly podcast where we present our theories of the subjects we cover based on our interest and research. Some material may be graphic and disturbing, so proceed with caution.
Okay. Hey guys, we're back.
Sipping on my caffeine here.
Yep. So, I guess, all right. Well, I mean, I have nothing to say here, so let's get into the case that we're covering today.
Let's get into it.
So today we are talking about the death of Lauren Agee. So this case has been on my list for a while, but all of a sudden, okay, so we decided to cover it a couple weeks ago maybe, and at the time, I really hadn't heard about it in very many places, and then I realized after we already were in the throes of researching that there was like an entire podcast dedicated to it, and the mother of Lauren Agee, her private investigator, has started a podcast about it. So it's been in the past few weeks. It just was released, so it's been, I guess, kind of in the media as far as the true crime, I guess, circles, but. Either way, we still wanted to cover it, and it's still pretty outrageous and kind of infuriating. And I wouldn't say kind of. I mean,
it's definitely infuriating. It's like the case we covered with like Kendra. You know, every case we covered that's like a murder. It's just like the facts are right there in your face, and you're just like screaming at your computer screen, and there's nothing much we can do.
Right. But, you know, hopefully the attention that it's getting, it does seem to be the case that there's like more people coming out and giving some testimony here and there. So maybe something will happen, just like with Up and Vanished. That covered the Tara Grinstead murder, or disappearance, I guess. They never found her body. But that was a 12-year-old cold case that was solved after, not solved completely, but they had absolutely had some confessions, I think, honestly. They did, yes. Two guys, I believe. Anyway, that was like, oh my gosh, we could do something like that one day. So anyway.
Yeah.
Even though this is being covered by an entire podcast.
What you keep your podcast in.
Oh dear. Okay, so yeah, what's the harm in spreading the word even more? I don't think there is any. So here we go. Lauren Agee was a 21-year-old student from Hendersonville, Tennessee. She had previously held a job as a lifeguard while she was in school, and she earned a dance scholarship to Bethel University, but left to pursue a degree in criminal justice at Vol State University.
Which I thought was super interesting. I just think it's almost ironic, you know?
Yeah, I know.
But we'll get into that why later, but she was also gorgeous.
She was very pretty. In 2015, the year that she died, she had a new boyfriend that she had described to some friends and family as the one. I don't know, so in early July, she was invited by a friend to go to Wakefest, which was a wakeboarding and water sports event at Center Hill Lake in Smithsville, Tennessee, which was about an hour and a half away from Hendersonville, where Lauren lived. It took place on the weekend of July 25th through the 27th, and at the last minute, the friend that had invited her told her that the car that they were going in was too full, and so Lauren was going to have to find a different ride to the Wakefest. Her mom, Sherry, tried to persuade her out of going. She didn't really feel comfortable with it, even though Lauren was 21. She just said that Hannah was kind of a fair weather friend and only seemed to come around whenever she wanted to hang out between boyfriends. So she just didn't think of her as somebody that she wanted Lauren to spend the whole weekend with, I guess. But, you know, she's 21, so she's going to do what she wants. So she told her mom she was staying in a cabin on the lake and that she would be driving back on Sunday. So on July 25th, the Friday morning, both the girls were excited as they were leaving for the trip, and Sherry, Lauren's mom, had actually pulled up to the house right as they were leaving. She said that Lauren jumped out of the car, came over to say goodbye, that she hugged her a couple times, and she noted that Hannah, I didn't even say, I'm just like throwing Hannah. I'm going to scale it back here.
Well, you said Hannah was a fair weather friend.
Did I say that Lauren talked to Hannah and they decided to go together?
They took Lauren's car.
Mm-hmm.
They were pulling out as Lauren's mom was pulling in because she had gotten off work because she did want to say goodbye to her daughter because, regardless whether or not how old she is, they're obviously close. And,
right. I mean, she lived with them. She lived with them, so, they're used to seeing each other.
Right. And so, she hops out, like you said, gives her a hug, and then, she goes back to get in the car to take off, but I guess, she turned back around and gave her mom one last hug, and her mom's, be careful, be careful. So,
well, the weird thing that her mom noted, and this is just coming from her mom, who is obviously going to have a very biased view about the whole situation, and understandably so. The one thing that she noted about the whole scenario at that moment was that Hannah didn't look up at her, smile at her, say hello, didn't greet her in any way. She just didn't even look over in her direction, which I personally found to be pretty odd because I would never think that would be a normal way to behave, to not greet the person's mother who I was going away with for the weekend. It just seems, and it may not mean anything at all, but to me, I was immediately oh, that seems awfully suspicious. What kind of terrible weekend did she have in store for her, the person that she was going with, that she didn't even want to look at her mom, who was somebody that she had known? Sherry said she knew, her name. She would have been able to say, Sherry, hi Sherry, but she didn't even look over at her, and I'm just maybe she was engrossed in a text message or a phone call, or maybe there was some creepy plan in place that made her feel like she couldn't even look over at her mom. But I doubt that, because that would implicate her because she was with her, so I don't know. Anyway,
I just know that growing up, even now, if I saw one of my friends' moms, I would immediately greet them, because
I know,
that's what you do.
It just seems weird, I mean, I hate to say that's not how I was raised, but it's
that's true though.
That's just not, unless the person was a total scumbag, I would be like, hey, hi, at least say hello. You don't have to have a full on conversation with her. But it just, who knows? Maybe she was just stoned and didn't want to talk to her. There's a million things that could be that we're now over speculating about because this girl ended up dead. So like I said, it's an hour-and-a-half drive, and the girls posted videos and photos on social media on their way to the lake where they were laughing and smiling and seemed to be just pretty excited about going.
This Wakefest is the big to-do. It's a huge party, and people love going, and it's be there or be square type deal.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those concert festivals, I guess, but for the Tennessee wakeboarding crowd.
Yeah, kind of like a Lake Havasu type thing, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what happens out here in the West is, people go to Lake Havasu for spring break, and it's this blowout party.
Man, I've seen all about Lake Havasu on Real Housewives of Orange County, because one of those ladies would go there. Oh, yeah. Okay, so once they arrived at the lake, they were quickly joined by Hannah's boyfriend, Aaron Lilly, and his friend, Christopher Stout. And it is at this point that Lauren supposedly learned of the sleeping arrangements, which were not staying at a cabin and were actually kind of almost like she was being paired up with this friend of her friend's boyfriend. Yeah. And they claim, and I'm saying this, and I mean, I'm at this point, I'm almost 100% positive this is untrue, but they claim their arrangement was that they were going to be sharing a hammock, the two of them, which was precariously placed on the cliffside. And is absurd to begin with. The whole idea of it is absurd, but then when you see that there are like multiple other hammocks and that her friend's tent in which she was staying with her boyfriend had 2 blow-up beds, I'm calling BS on the story that these kids are trying to say that Lauren and Chris were to share a 2-person hammock.
Yeah. Especially,
it's ridiculous.
We'll post a picture because it's an idiotic placement for a hammock.
It's idiotic.
Yeah.
Unless you were trying to purposefully make somebody fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
It's dumb. Unless you were perhaps just going to sit in that thing. Like Shai, we were talking about earlier and Shai said like, maybe just like sit and relax and like look out on the lake. It may make sense, perhaps. But to say that 2 people are going to be sleeping in that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And when I go camping, I use an Eno double person hammock. So I don't have a tent. I sleep in the hammock. I would never in my life think, oh, I'm going to share this hammock with my husband. We both have double hammocks because there's no way. I know people that share them with their dog, and even that seems like that would, I don't know how you're balancing that. Maybe they have smaller dogs than I do, or I don't know. Either way, the person thing is ridiculous. On a cliffside is even more ridiculous. And I just don't think that Lauren was that foolish to say, oh, whatever, I don't have anywhere else to sleep, so I'm going to just sleep in this hammock with this other guy I don't know in this precarious place.
Right. And because she had a boyfriend at home.
Yeah, which, I mean, she did have a boyfriend. She did say he was the one to people. That doesn't necessarily mean that she wasn't also, like, going to be down to hook up with some guy at Wakefest. Because I do feel like sometimes it's painted like she's a perfect angel. And maybe she was, but she could also have been down for the possibility of hooking up with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, her boyfriend didn't go with her to Wakefest. I don't know. But regardless, what were we, before I said all that, what was the point?
Well, let's just let's stress that there was 2 mattresses.
Yeah. Inside of a tent.
Inside of a tent.
That is, I don't even know how you're trying. Okay, and there's even more stuff that comes up later that is going to help make that whole situation a little bit more clear, in my opinion. So we'll get to that, but not yet. So, okay, so this clifftop campsite area where they were camping is actually 2 campsites that are separated by a significant drop in between the 2. So from what I've heard, that drop in between the 2 campsites is pretty bad itself. So you could fall in that middle drop and really hurt yourself bad. So there's 2 different campsites. On the right side, there was the main tent and there were 4 hammocks. And on the left side, there were 2 chairs and 2 hammocks. So it wasn't, I mean, and I know there were a few other people, like I know there was one guy named Brix Gramble, I think, or Gambrel. I have him later in the story, but I know he was also on the campsite and he helped set everything up initially before the girls even got there. And he was named in the civil lawsuit, or the criminal lawsuit, I'm sorry, that the mother filed that was later dismissed, I believe. So Lauren supposedly had no prior knowledge that they were going to be sleeping up here or that they were even going to be hooking up with these guys.
Well, she thought that they were going to stay in a cabin. Like, who gave her the idea that they were going to be in a cabin? Unless she was supposed to stay in a cabin with her original party that she wanted to go with beforehand. But I don't know. And I also wonder, she also could have just told her mom, yeah, we're staying in a cabin, and knew that they were going to be camping, but she did seem ill-prepared, as we will cover soon. Well, she did tell that, we'll get into this later, but remember when she was telling that police who was off-duty policing, but security for the bar, she kept telling him that they were staying in a cabin.
Oh, did she? See, I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, supposedly, she would not have gone had she known that this is how it was going to go.
Right.
Not her dying, obviously, but her having to sleep in a hammock or even in a tent out with her sort of friend and her creepy boyfriend and friend. Like, ugh. I mean, can you, personally, I'm like, what a freaking nightmare. Like, I can already, feel horrified by this.
So you have to kayak to this spot, right? Kayak or canoe, whatever, canoeing. And it's up such a steep face, they had to install a rope to where you had to hang on to a rope and rope climb your way up to this spot.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, you got to work to get back home to rest.
And if you're out partying and stuff, no.
I mean, obviously it happens, but, you know, I sure would be not really down for that. I mean, I would do it, but I wouldn't be real thrilled.
No.
And she was not really prepared for camping in the elements in any way. Like, she had a sleeping bag, she had a phone, a change of clothes, and flip-flops. Like, it wasn't like she didn't even bring tennis shoes.
Right.
Or a dry bag, because apparently that's what they kind of know that you have to have in order to get down from the cliff and go to, like, the Wakefest and the parties and the bar and stuff. They would put their belongings in a dry bag so that they could jump into the water and not, you know, ruin their phone or whatever. So, I mean, she wasn't prepared for that, especially. And so also at this campsite, one side of this cliff side area is a 90-foot drop and the other side is a 45-foot drop. The 45-foot drop is more at an angle, so that if you fell off that, and we'll get more into that, but if you fell off that you're almost guaranteed to hit trees, branches, rocks. You're not going to be able to get into the water from that side. On the other side, the 90-foot drop, that's where they jump off. So
yeah, because it's like a big to-do, the cliff diving part. Yeah.
So it's that side where you jump off to your canoe and get down to the Wakefest. So they, you know, there's like a picture that Lauren took with Chris in the hammock during the day that I believe was probably taken on Friday afternoon whenever they first got there. They look happy. I mean, she posted it. It wasn't like she was immediately like, screw this, get me out of here. But she was just trying to go with the flow probably. And she was also, it was the afternoon. She wasn't probably thinking that it was going to end up being, you know, 2 a.m. and she was going to be desperately searching for someplace to go. So, which we haven't talked about yet, but while they were all hanging out on the cliffside, so everybody that lives in this area, it's like a small town. Hendersonville, where they're from, is a small town. Everybody kind of knows each other. They were up on this cliffside hanging out, and some of their old friends came up onto the cliff to talk to them. It was actually Aaron's ex-girlfriend who I will get into in a little while because that's a whole other, like, this whole him and Hannah and Cassie story is a whole other story on its own. But his ex-girlfriend, who had been with him at Wakefest before, so she knew this cliffside, she and one of her friends, and then 4 of his friends, all like 6 people went up to this cliffside to kind of hang out with these people for a little bit. And I know that kind of got a little convoluted there, but just hang with me.
This is that LD guy, correct?
Yeah, his name is LD.
And he has a history with Aaron.
Yes, because he is really good friends with Cassie. Her family kind of took him in at one point when he was younger, and he had been around whenever Cassie was dating Aaron, and Aaron was abusive, and which we will also get into more later. But at the initial point, whenever they first got up on the cliffside, Aaron was inside of his tent, so they didn't see him, and they were kind of just meeting everybody. He met Lauren and Hannah, and everybody was just talking, and there were 6 people there, all witnessing this conversation and these interactions. So Aaron came out of the tent at some point, and they did not speak because they didn't get along, but they were kind of just hanging around. He said it was a little tense after Aaron came out, but then all of a sudden, Aaron blurted out this bizarre statement that he said, if anything was to ever happen up here, then it stays up here and no one is going to say anything. And LD said that he said this completely out of nowhere. It freaked them all out, and they left shortly after he said that because that was a really ominous thing to say. He was like, does he know something is going to happen, or is he just trying to tell us it's like dangerous up here because of the terrain, or what? Like, that's what the exact words this guy said. He's like, I couldn't really figure out if he was like threatening or what was going on. I mean, I felt like that was the most bizarre thing that you would say.
It is bizarre. And part of me also thinks too, he could be referring to people hooking up with each other.
Oh yeah, that's possible too. Oh, that's definitely possible. I don't really ever think about that.
Yeah, because I believe Cassie in her interview states that they got drunk, ended up having sex, and then promised to not say anything because they had made a pact that they weren't going to like interact with each other, but if something happens, it happens because they're not together. And
well, I mean, I guess we might as well get into the history of them because it's about to come up anyway. So Cassie and Aaron had dated, and we'll get into the abuse stuff later in detail of what she claimed, like, and I'm not saying that she's lying, but what she claims has gone on in their past. But Cassie and Aaron had a relationship. They were together for like years. He became super abusive. Police were called. He was arrested. They were both taken to jail, but he was actually arrested for domestic violence, where he like threw her downstairs and he did other things to her. And they were actually ordered by the court to separate.
Yeah.
So they were supposed to not see each other, but they were secretly still seeing each other. And then he started dating Hannah at some point after that, or in the summer. So that was in January, and then sometime near the summer, he started dating Hannah, but he continued to see Cassie on the side. Hannah found out, broke up with him, like cut off all communication with him, and then I don't know why, I guess he started trying to contact her again, and they were trying to make this Wakefest weekend be where they were giving the relationship like a second chance. But he had sex with Cassie the night before he left for Wakefest, so I don't really know how serious he was really taking the relationship at that time.
He's a scumbag. I'm just gonna say it right now.
Yeah, he definitely sucks, and for many reasons, that included. So, yeah, and also, as we start to theorize and hear more details, sometimes I do wonder what kind of hooking up and stuff was going on this cliffside. I just don't know. And how that plays into what happened in the end, if at all. So, to get down, like we said, to get down from the cliff, you had to either jump into the water or you had to descend down the cliffside with that rope, and I imagine that would be pretty tricky to do. Would probably rather jump, but,
yeah,
you know.
I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. Other way, it wouldn't be fun.
I guess like cliff jumping. Last time I did, I almost died.
No. I definitely have no interest in jumping off of a high ledge where it's possible if I make a mistake, I'm going to land on a rock. Like, definitely not.
I'd rather not.
No. So all four of them, Aaron, Hannah, Lauren, and Chris, all jumped off of the cliff to get to their canoe and go to the bar in the marina. And according to Aaron, Hannah, and Chris, Lauren had trouble with the jump and ended up hitting her head somehow when she landed. And they say that she may have suffered a concussion at that point.
No.
Yeah, I'm calling BS on that because it seems like if you were jumping that far, you hit your head like they're trying to say,
you're gonna probably die.
You'd have some issues that I don't think you would be, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. I think you'd be unconscious or something.
Well, especially from what do you mean she hit her head? Like coming up, or if you smack your head jumping that far from somewhere,
right,
you're probably gonna crack it wide open.
Right. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. He did also say, and you know, in this whole story, the three other people that were there, their stories will change so many times that it's hard to keep track of them all. But in the midst of telling these stories to the police, he also said that she just got the wind knocked out of her. So I think that's probably really what happened. And in creating some cover up, they transformed that into she hit her head.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said she got the wind knocked out of her and that he supposedly came to help her get into the canoe after she jumped. But everyone said that she was fine, and they continued on to the marina to go to this bar called
Fish Lips.
Fish Lips, yeah. Fish Lips. So once they were at the bar, Fish Lips.
Oh, I just wanted to say, like, Fish Lips isn't some divey, gross bar with shady characters. It's said to be, like, a really pleasant, friendly, clean place. So it's not like they're going to some dumpy, dangerous place.
Right.
So I just feel like it's important to know that.
Right. Yeah, they said it was like, it made you really feel like you were in the Florida Keys or something when you went to this bar. Once they were there, they met with other friends that were attending Wakefest, and there was a lot of them. And they were all drinking. Everyone that came in contact with or hung out with Lauren at the bar, they all described her as her usual happy, outgoing self, that she was in a great mood. She didn't seem to be suffering any symptoms of a head injury. There's video footage of her at the bar that shows her lively and in good spirits. She kind of waved at the camera when she realized that it was there. It doesn't necessarily prove that she didn't have a concussion,
right, but
it does just support the accounts of everyone who said that she was just acting normal, hanging out, wasn't acting overly drunk or anything like that. Because, you know, sometimes symptoms of a concussion can come across as maybe being inebriated, but it wasn't really even like she was that drunk or inebriated or anything in the first place.
Right.
But you have plenty of experience with getting a concussion.
Yeah, you definitely act a little odd.
So when Shy has a concussion, you know it's going to be real weird.
I like to do things that normally I wouldn't do.
Oh, that's very vague.
Well,
you know, you can't control what you're doing with a concussion.
Right.
Anyway, I don't think Lauren had a concussion, though. I mean, it doesn't seem that like she did.
Okay, what I do find strange is, like, they're kind of videoing and documenting this entire weekend, you know? And Lauren's mom had mentioned something about the cliff jumping, how she said, I don't really see my daughter doing that.
Yeah.
So it would kind of be a big deal. And why wouldn't you record that? If I'm jumping off a giant cliff, I'm going to post it to the gram. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, maybe because if you did, like, it's just too difficult to do it and have your phone.
But somebody else could have recorded it for her, right?
Yeah, but they're like, well, we're jumping off too, so we're not going to sit here and tape you and then get our bag, and I don't know. Why would they not tape it?
See? I don't know. Well, because if they have dry bags, your phone will be fine.
Yeah, but maybe it's a fanny pack or something. It's already on you, and it's already in there, and you're just not thinking.
Well, they had their phones with them, so I don't know. I don't know. I think it's strange.
Or maybe they left their phones in the boat.
Possibly.
I don't know. I'm not trying to defend them. I'm just thinking of reasons because like I don't know. I mean, maybe they just didn't, or maybe the only reason I would think that they wouldn't record it is if somebody pushed her off and she hurt herself, because otherwise it would document that you didn't do anything to hurt her. Even if she did hurt herself, you didn't do it.
Yeah. She
jumped off and hit her head, you know? So if they deleted it or something. So the only reason they wouldn't have it, if they were intentionally not taking video or had deleted video for any reason versus just didn't think to record it,
right,
it would be, in my opinion, because it was like some sort of situation that maybe would show it wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was an accident, sort of, but not really. Maybe you didn't mean to push her off the cliff, but you meant to push her,
like,
and then
to get her going. Maybe she had a hard time taking the plunge.
Yeah, so who knows? But there's also additional video footage at the bar where it shows that Aaron and Chris got into an altercation with Cassie, his ex-girlfriend, who happened to just find out that he got back together with Hannah because he didn't answer. She was texting him a lot, and he was just saying, oh yeah, I'll be there, like, you'll see me there. And she was asking him, like, you same old spot? And he was like, yeah, we'll be at the same old spot, you know. And she was like, hey, can we meet up? And he was like, you'll see me. And then she did, and he was with Hannah as they were trying to reconcile or something. So she was probably pissed and drunk. So that's another thing I want to mention is, while she has documented proof of abuse that she suffered by the hands of Aaron, she doesn't like this dude, I don't think. You know, that's going to color some of her opinion of him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also heard her say that she didn't think he was capable of actually harming her. So she might still have kind of a little bit of a soft spot in her heart for him still.
Or that.
I don't know.
Or she spent so much time with him, dating him, that she's also mentally abused, and, you know, like that Stockholm syndrome or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where she thinks, you know, she could help him, or that he's still a good guy.
Yeah, can't judge her for that, because I understand that it's not easy to get over it, but man, oh man. So Cassie told law enforcement that Lauren told her that she's told multiple people actually this, but that Lauren told her that she had zero romantic interest in Chris, and she was not happy about the arrangement at the campsite, especially considering that she had a boyfriend at home. Mm-hmm. Which, yeah. According to Cassie, Lauren said she'd been unknowingly paired with Chris for the weekend because Hannah and Aaron were hooking up, and even asked if she could come stay with them in their cabin, but Cassie said they did not have extra room. At some point, Aaron, Hannah, and Chris claim that they had to take Lauren's car keys away from her because she wanted to leave, but she had been drinking and they weren't going to let her drive, so they took her car keys away. Which I just don't see them. I don't really see them being the kind of friends to even care enough to do that, you know, unless it was because they were like taunting her about taking her keys and not letting her leave. Otherwise, I just don't think they really cared that much. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe they really didn't want her to drive drunk, but I just don't see that they really gave a shit.
Well, didn't you mention that there was like witnesses saying that they were kind of being rude to her and giving her a hard time?
Yeah, so she had called her friend Jade, who lived in Hendersonville, which is an hour and a half away, and it was like around like 11 o'clock at night, asking her if she could come pick her up because the people she was with were being mean to her. And her friend couldn't do it because it was late. The road is really windy. It's dark. It was, almost 2 hours away. That's, it was just not reasonable. I'm sure that she really beats herself up about it now. Regardless, she had said they were being mean to her. And that really started making me wonder what in the world was going on. Because she really did. Other people that were there said that she told them she was not having fun. I do wonder, what the heck was going on that was making her want to leave so badly? What was going on? And why couldn't she just not go back up there with them, I guess?
I kind of feel like maybe they were pressuring her to just kind of give in to, hooking up with Chris. Maybe he had the expectation that they were bringing her for him, and then when things didn't pan out, it was
I don't think Chris had anything to do with it whatsoever. I think I think he covered it up, but I don't think he had any, I think if anybody was pressuring her to do anything, it was Aaron was pressuring her to hook up with him, or they were pressuring her to hook up with Aaron and Hannah or something.
That's what I'm saying is maybe, Chris was disappointed and Aaron was getting annoyed that Lauren wasn't putting out or hanging out with his friend or whatever. So they were being mean to her.
I just don't even know. I mean, it's possible. Anything is possible. I just don't even. It's one of those ones where these are all of them, all the cases that we talk about, where it's just we don't really know exactly what happened, and it's what? And, there's so many possibilities. But let's continue, and we'll maybe start to get a better picture. There's a video at the bar also. The private eye her mom's private eye claims that when Chris walks by that she rolls her eyes really hard at him, she clearly didn't like being around him. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was just a little tidbit to mention. The time that the four left the Fish Lips bar is unclear because they can't get their story straight, and there's a couple different witnesses that have different times. So Aaron, the little angel that he is, he claimed that they left the bar at midnight.
Yeah.
And that was disputed by Officer Yarchuk, one of the off-duty police officers who was working as security for Wakefest in the marina, who was one of the first people on the scene once her body was discovered. He actually had interacted with them that night while they were at the bar. So he had spoken with them and talked to them. I think even one of the girls got a cigarette from him.
Yep. Lauren or Hannah had asked him for a cigarette.
And I think he gave him one. And so he had interacted, and he said that he observed them, all four of them, in their canoe going back to the campsite sometime between 2 and 2:30 a.m. So he said that he observed that at 2:30 a.m., which is 2 to 2.5 hours later than Aaron says, for some reason.
Well,
and then one more person was the last person to see Lauren, and it was her friend Evan, who she hung out with at the bar, and he said that they left the bar somewhere between 2:30 a.m. and 3:30 a.m.
Interesting, though. What's interesting is they did look at Lauren's phone, and she had received a text from Aaron at 1:30 a.m. saying, "We're on the houseboat. Yell if you need anything."
Yeah.
What is that about?
Well,
what do you mean? Yell if you need anything.
Maybe at that time she was hanging out with her friend Evan at the bar, and they were on a houseboat, and then they hooked up to go back to, because Officer Yarchuk saw them, in all four of them, and unless she was dead already or something, or unconscious, in the canoe at somewhere between around probably 2:30, if that's when her friend Evan says that they left. So it was probably somewhere around 2:30. So maybe they were, I know that Chris was passed out in a houseboat, and they had to get him before they went back to the campsite, supposedly, at the time that they left. So maybe Aaron was in a houseboat partying, and she was at the marina bar with her friend Evan that she was with until she left, is what this guy Evan said. So that might make sense, perhaps. Because at that point, she should still be alive, unless Officer Yarchuk was fooled into thinking she was alive whenever she was in the canoe, and she wasn't.
Yeah.
So,
which would be really creepy.
Yeah, because he said that Aaron was seated next to Lauren in the canoe, and was talking to her. So who knows? Maybe it's possible that he was propping her up or something, but I don't know. I just want to know, why was she so desperately trying to stay away from the campsite, but then still went, So I don't know. Maybe also her stuff is there. But she was willing to leave her car. That's the thing that kind of made me pause, is she was willing to leave her car at Wakefest, which is almost 2 hours away from her house, in order to have somebody pick her up So it had to have been pretty bad that she wanted to leave.
Well, and because, like, she also had plans to actually go to a party with her boyfriend that Saturday night.
I know. That's what I'm so confused about, though. Why is that the case? Because I heard that, too. But then she told her mom that she was going to be back Sunday. If she had plans to go to this party on Saturday. I don't know. It's just so strange.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's so confusing is everybody has, like, a different story. There's no one story that we can go off of.
Yeah, it's definitely none of the people there have one story. And, as much as I really do, the more I've read and heard of the private investigator, I really do think I can trust that she's not trying to like spread misinformation or just take the mom's story and run with it. But the mom is definitely, her mother obviously is heartbroken, wants justice. But I feel like it's her daughter, so she's going to see her with these kind of more rose-colored glasses than might be actually the case. So I don't want to totally discount that she might have lied or told her mom something that she didn't necessarily plan just so that her mom wasn't like...
Sorry.
Yeah. It's possible. Oh, right. But she was alive on the boat also because... in the canoe on the way to the campsite that night, they made a video where she is heard saying, "We're headed for the death trap," because it was
that's right.
They were headed towards that cliffside where they have to climb up. So
was that night, or was that when they were initially going to the cliff at the first day?
It was the night because it was really dark.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's like tells you right there how thrilled she was about going.
Right. She was definitely alive on the canoe. So maybe we're on the houseboat thing. Maybe he really was. Maybe he really was on a houseboat. They were not together. He was like, when the bar closes, this is where we are, whatever. So according to all three of the surviving party, all four of them made it back to the campsite okay, and they went to sleep. And that is the last time that anyone reported seeing Lauren alive. The three later suggested that a photo that was posted on social media of Chris and Lauren in the hammock that had been taken when they first got there was when they all returned to the campsite. But I don't know why they did that because it's really bright in the photo and it was 3 a.m. or 2:30 or whatever. And when they made that video of them canoeing back to the campsite, it was pitch black outside. So the photo was taken during the day. And I don't know why they would want to say it was at night, but maybe to establish that they were in the hammock together. I don't know. Because I really think they're pushing this hammock thing hard and I really don't believe it. So the following morning, supposedly, everybody woke up and Lauren was gone. And Hannah then supposedly asked Chris where she was. And he stated that he felt her get up at some time in the morning, but he didn't see her and she never came back. Which, that's pretty asinine, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I understand. You were partying. You were probably drinking and doing drugs. If somebody got up in the middle of the night and it woke you up, that you would fall back asleep and not really be concerned when they didn't come back because you're just not really that worried or paying attention. But if you're in a two-person hammock and one person gets out, you're probably going to topple out. I'm not real sure how...
Especially if you're drinking.
He said, I felt her, but I didn't see her. And then at another point, he said, I didn't feel her, but she got out. So I'm like, what? You can't even keep straight if you felt her get out or not? I don't understand how you can't keep your story straight that badly. It's ridiculous. But yeah, you really have to balance the weight in those hammocks, in those two-person Eno hammocks in order to not topple over. Like there are some times when I topple over just by myself, trying to get into my sleeping bag.
Sober hammocks are really awkward. I have to be extremely careful. And if you're in a hammock with someone and they're getting out, it's not going to be, I am not sure if I felt them get out or not. Nope, they got out.
Yeah, because I fell out too. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. So Hannah, Chris, and Aaron were all seen on the dock in the marina around 7 a.m. on Saturday morning, but they made no report about Lauren being missing and were not asking around to find out where she may be, if she had in fact found another group of friends to go with, as they later tried to suggest. I find that to be really odd, that all three of them were up at 7 a.m. whenever they had gone to bed at maybe 3:30, maybe later. Who knows? Maybe they never even went to sleep and they were still up because they were doing something with a body. Who knows?
That's still early.
But drinking and doing whatever else, are you really going to be up that early?
Heck no.
I just don't think so. Like I was telling you the other day, I do wake up early. I wake up early anyway, but I do wake up early whenever I am backpacking because the sun, you kind of wake up with the sun.
Because it's hot.
But if you're drunk, I think you just don't care.
No, for real.
I don't think it really makes that big of a difference.
Yeah.
You know, these dudes, they're not big go-getters or anything.
No.
They said that they all woke up, they saw Lauren's belongings were still at the campsite, and they went on to Wakefest because they figured she just found some other people to go with, and she'd be back for her stuff if she wasn't going to come back to stay with them. So they made no big deal of it. La-di-da. Let's just go about our way.
Well, what I don't get is, like, they have their phones, they got service or whatever. Why wouldn't you, like, send a text or try to call her or something?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so.
I know that I would. I'd be like, where the heck is my friend?
Yeah, I would also probably be trying to find people that we mutually know and ask them if they'd seen her or
yeah.
anything like that. Because, you know, the time of morning in which they're claiming that she got up or whatever out of the hammock, it would have been dark out. So
yeah,
it's not like, and I believe her phone was dead is part of the problem, but who is she contacting then if her phone is dead?
Right.
So anyway, Cassie, if we remember, Aaron's ex-girlfriend, or, you know, whatever. I can't even, I don't know if you can really call her his ex-girlfriend at the time because they were still seeing each other. But Cassie was creeping on Aaron and Hannah's social media profiles because she was, you know, had kind of just been jilted by him. And so, you know how we all have our propensities for, if things like that go on, we kind of want to creep on people. That's the part of the perks of having social media. But she said she was creeping on him. And they were posting on social media all Saturday, like wakeboarding, hanging out, having fun, being on boats. They were just posting it up.
Lauren was like out of sight, out of mind at this point for these people.
Yeah, totally. At approximately 4:30 on Saturday afternoon, the 26th, a fisherman and his son were on the lake when they spotted something in the water, which they initially thought was just a pair of pink shorts, and in reality, it was the body of Lauren Agee face down, floating in the water. They discreetly contacted the marina police, the two officers that were working security, that were actually police officers from a nearby city, and they were off duty at the time, so they were just working like their second job. They told them very privately, and they were the only 4 people that knew that this body had been discovered. So it wasn't publicized in any way whatsoever. No one else knew. No one else had seen it. And it was only the 4 of them who knew that this body was there. They also hadn't identified it yet. But again, let me emphasize, they were the only 4 people who knew this body was in the lake at the time. And all of a sudden, Chris and Aaron came around a corner in their canoe, and Aaron said, "I think you might have found our friend who's missing." Everybody that was there found it to be extremely odd and suspicious that he even knew that there was a body that had been discovered at all. And they thought it was very, very suspicious. And it's one of those things where I don't know if you could consider this a spontaneous utterance.
Oh, yeah.
You know there was a body, so you're like, I think you might have found our friend who's missing.
The wording, it's so strange. Especially, you know, were they watching these people? Like, oh, hey, there's someone over there.
Right. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you guys were trying to act natural about this, it was the worst job possible because you acted super suspicious.
Well, the area that she was found at, they were saying, like, if you wanted to hide something, this would be, like, a good place to put it because unless you, like, are purposely going over there for something, you're not going to see what's over there whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, and I know, like, with fishing, you want to find spots where, like, fish would be. So if it's, like, like populated area, you're going to stay out of it. Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just thought about that too.
I know that cliff faces where, like, the water might be deeper and, like, it kind of caves in where the fish can hang out would be a really good place. Like an enclave?
Enclave, uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, because it's shadow, the fish can get rest and, like, stay out of the heat.
Yeah.
So it's like they were, like, waiting for someone to head over there so they could pop out and be like, BT dubs, is that our dead friend's body?
Right. No, I mean.
Weird.
Holy cow. Yeah. In this really weird little pocket that, like, we wouldn't ever be in. Because, it was a weird spot. So Officer Yarchuk, one of the off-duty police officers that was there, he is a veteran of the police department, and he said that this is where the 3, Chris, Aaron, and Hannah's behavior began to be called into question, and he would grow increasingly suspicious of them the more that they said. So the other officer ended up, and I have his name in here somewhere, but I will mention it later because it's not right here, and so sorry about that. But the other officer that was with Yarchuk, he would report that he believed the entire encounter with Chris and Aaron was staged, and that the boys knew the body was there before the police did. The cove where Lauren was found was located behind the cliff where the 4 were camping, but the site where they were faced the marina on the opposite side of the cove. So the body would have had to make a U-turn and go around the tip of this cove, and it would supposedly have moved against the current at the time of this incident into this area in the cove. So it seems to be highly unlikely that the body would have naturally, if she had gone into the water and died, naturally would have floated all the way over to this cove that would have literally had to have done a U-turn in order to get there versus going the way that it would have probably naturally gone. That said, lake currents can be unpredictable and often change, so it is possible. Like, there's a slight slim chance, but so I don't want to say it's like absolutely impossible, but it's unlikely that is what actually happened with her body. There's other reasons for that as well. But coming back to the boys coming upon the police discovering her body, if they didn't already know where Lauren was, they would have had to have gotten in their canoe and headed in the opposite direction away from the marina where they would be facing if they cliff jumped from the campsite to their canoe. So they would have accidentally then stumbled upon her body in like a completely different place than they would have naturally been going.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's infuriating to think that such stupidity was allowed to pass as fact in the case. It's like, oh my gosh, how in the world? So they were questioned by the two police that were working the event, and those police had the foresight to record them because they thought they were suspicious as hell. So they recorded, not that it ended up mattering in the long run.
I know.
But they ended up recording their conversations with these, I don't want to even call them kids because they're not kids, they're just young adults.
Right.
I don't want to like give them any sort of leeway here. And these three people, they knew there was something off with their behavior and their stories were changing. So they were like, I need to record this. And they described Chris and Aaron as nervous and unsympathetic. Okay, which seems weird. I mean, I don't know. Part of me was like, well, I mean, if they didn't really know her, they're douchey ass dudes.
They really are.
Maybe they just don't care, you know? But the investigators believed that the body was Lauren, but they were concerned that she was not reported missing until the point her body was discovered. That's obviously going to be a point of contention here. And her body was found 14 hours after she was supposedly last seen. So right off the bat, it's like, hey guys, if your friend's been missing for this long and you're actually concerned and you think she's missing, that could be her body, why did you never say anything to anybody about it?
Well, that's just, they're like carrying on their whole day, like continuing to party and hang out like it's no big deal. Like,
right.
If my friend watches ashore, whatevs, like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, your behavior up until this point does not align with your behavior of you going, oh my gosh, I think you might have found our friend.
Right.
Because up until this point, you haven't given a crap about it. So that does not, there's an inconsistency in your behavior from the get-go. I don't know. I just really don't understand. So many Wakefest attendees were interviewed after the discovery of Lauren's body, and they have all claimed they really had no idea that Lauren had been missing since the previous night. And the private investigator has interviewed a numerous amount of people. She says that of all the people that she has spoken with, only 2 people said they even knew that anybody was somewhat looking for Lauren.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, she's missing, we haven't seen her. It was, oh, hey, have you seen Lauren? Oh, it doesn't matter. You know, it was like they needed to get a couple people to hear that at some point so that it didn't look suspicious, which I find to be suspicious.
So speaking of suspicious, you had mentioned that the police had the foresight to actually record these individuals. What's really strange is Aaron Lilly is repeatedly saying, don't mention anything, I'll do the talking, and supposedly...
Yeah, like what the hell is that?
Yeah. Like, okay. So the officers kind of notice that they're being strange, and I believe the officer says, like, what are you thinking? Or like, what's on your mind? And Aaron replies back, I'm thinking about how I'm going to get that gun off from your hip and get off this boat.
What? Like,
excuse me?
What in the hell kind of response is that? Like, period. So weird, dude.
Yeah.
If you weren't completely flipping your shit on the inside, would you say that?
No.
That's the only reason why you would even remotely have that thought in your head, you would think, is because you're like, we've been caught.
I'm going down for this murder.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, holy...
Just think about that. Think about being an officer and someone saying, I'm thinking about how to get that gun from your hip.
I can tell you a number of folks that if they would have said that would have been shot.
Yeah.
Right on the spot. But these, you know, these cops, maybe because they weren't on-duty cops,
But he still had a gun on his hip. And from what I understand, the one officer had been around Wakefest for a long time and had been an older officer, so he's kind of...
a well-known.
Yeah, and he probably definitely strange, but he was probably like, these kids, man, idiots. So who knows? Right. But still, I'd be like, nah, we're gonna cuff you.
Yeah, I'm gonna knock you unconscious. I'm gonna hold your head underwater for a few seconds here, and
I'm gonna kick you off the canoe.
Okay, so many of the investigators that were present stated that Hannah, Chris, and Aaron seemed unalarmed that Lauren had disappeared, and all her belongings had been left at the campsite, including her shoes. So what are they trying to say? That she scaled the cliffside barefoot, she cliff jumped in the dark. That's what they're trying to claim now. Yeah. Considering it would be precarious to jump off the cliff in daylight, I highly doubt she was doing it at night.
I don't think
the only reason you would do it at night would be because you were freaking terrified, kind of, thinking about Magdalena's case.
Yeah, taking extreme measures to preserve your own life.
Right. So. Yeah. It's death or something equally bad. Worse. So Chris, Aaron, and Hannah were all taken mainland for questioning, and this is where their stories begin to differ greatly. Aaron said that Lauren never came back with them to the campsite. That's his initial thing, was she never came back with us. But luckily, Officer Yarchuk was like, nope, dude, I saw ya on your canoe, all four of you going back to the campsite. So you can't tell me that she didn't come back with you. I saw it. And also, her possessions were all there. Hannah then claimed that Lauren left the campsite in the early hours of the morning, getting in a boat with someone else, in the dark, mind you, which would require her either scaling down the cliffside barefoot, cliff jumping in the dark, and also would have required that she would be talking to someone to arrange this when I believe her phone was dead. So I don't think that's a very viable option. She said that she saw all of Lauren's possessions there when she woke up and assumed she'd gone to meet others, but would come back later for her things and she wasn't worried about it. And then that's when Chris stated that he thought Lauren got up in the middle of the night, but he didn't really feel her get out of the hammock, which, like we already discussed, is an enormous amount of bullshit, because there's no way. Okay. Plus, like I said, he says, I felt her, but I didn't see her. And then another time he's like, I didn't feel her, but I know she got out. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's probably because she was never in that hammock.
Oh yeah, that's what he said. That was so weird to me, that he was like, she got out, but I didn't feel her get up. What are you talking about? Like, you would know.
You know why he says it to me? I'm like, it's clear that she was never in the hammock to begin with. So that's why he's like, I didn't feel her get out, because you don't know what it's like to be in a hammock with another person. I mean, really. It's like, because
True.
If someone gets out. So there was another story. I mean, they really, within a matter of like minutes, their stories were kind of evolving as they said them out loud. One of the stories that they were theorizing with the investigators was that Lauren got up in the middle of the night to pee and ended up drunkenly falling off the cliffside, which I'm like, because they said, well, we thought maybe she fell off then. Maybe she fell off. And it's like, then wouldn't you have firstly heard her? Secondly, because she probably wouldn't have just died, she would have probably been able to holler.
Did you not look over the cliffside and maybe like jump down and swim over to where she possibly could have been?
And plus, if you really thought that, why would you not have alerted someone instead of being like, oh, if she fell, she'll probably figure out something.
Hello, right?
Are you kidding me right now?
Right.
So they decided not to report her missing or make any effort to look for her because she probably went off with someone else in the middle of the night in the dark and left all her stuff.
Okay. Well, her stupid friend Hannah.
Oh, she's stupid.
I'm gonna say it. Mm-hmm. Her listening to her interviews and she's like sob story. She just got up to pee like 20 times. She's like, she probably just got up to pee. Okay, then if you think your friend got up to pee, come back. Do something.
And I encourage all of you to go find that audio, and you can listen to it on. I'm pretty sure, is it on Without Warning?
Yeah.
Okay. So on, which we'll talk about at the end, but we'll talk about it at the end, because like I do encourage you, because it is the audio of this is of her interviewing with the private investigator, and the audio of her with the Officer Yarchuk that he recorded, it's like so obviously
crocodile tears.
Yeah, she's lying. Like she's like trying to figure out her story as she's saying it out loud. It's crazy.
Well, let's not forget too, she's not a close friend. Even her mom said in the beginning, you haven't been close with her in a long time. So.
Right. So.
Yeah.
This is also where they also kind of throw this other theory in the mix that Lauren was crying at the bar about her ex-boyfriend Clint, who was at Wakefest, and said that she was leaving to meet with him, but they spoke with Clint. He denied it completely, and he was with people and had a credible alibi, and these people could vouch for him. So, you know, they're trying to throw this guy under the bus.
Well, that, and this is where it, like, pissed me off, because Erin is interviewing, trying to make Lauren sound like a freaking hussy. Like, she's there just, like, being a slew, hooking up with dudes left and right, and that she's friendly with everyone. I'm like, oh, I'm going to throat punch you.
Right. He's really gross. And as we know from many other cases, not having a solid story from the get-go is pretty indicative of the fact that either you're covering something up because you don't have a damn story straight, and that maybe this situation isn't as accidental as you claim it is.
Right.
If something legitimately happened, and you are going to just have to, like, fess up to it, you're going to be able to at least have facts that align with the people who are there's facts. Like, nobody's facts line up. Everybody's stories change. Like, their own stories change. It's just crazy. It doesn't there's no consistency whatsoever. And that, to me, if you were a police officer investigating this, you would see that as a red flag that something is wrong here. But the police did not. Unfortunately, the only ones that did see something was wrong were the people that were actually on the scene from the get-go, who were off duty, and this is not their jurisdiction. Because the police who had this investigation really just wanted to write her off as a drunk accident, you know?
Right.
Pretty immediately. When there's red flags left and right that something hinky went on here. So as Shai said, they were whispering to each other on the boat ride, and they were just being super suspicious and secretive. And like Shai said, he said, don't mention anything, I'll do the talking. How am I going to get that gun off your hip? I mean, he said all this crazy stuff. And like she was saying, he was trying to make her out to be this flirtatious person. He said she reminded him of his crazy ex-girlfriend, that she tried to make a move on him, and some other stuff about her being, like, flirtatious with a bunch of guys. And I almost wonder if that was one of those things where he tried to make a move on her, and so now in his retelling of the story, Aaron tried to make a move on Lauren, and in his retelling of the story to cover up what happened, she now is the one that made the move on him. I don't know. It just seems like there's a bunch of things that maybe they have said that are maybe accurate, but not quite how they are trying to paint the picture.
Well, that's typical D-bag move, you know? Hey, girl, what's up? And then she says no, and he's like, oh, well, you're a slut anyway. Like,
right.
What?
And that seems like he is the prototypical douchebag.
Of D-bag, yeah. And let's not forget, too, she was supposed to meet her boyfriend the very next day for a party. Like, I highly doubt she's out there throwing her stuff around, knowing I just don't see it.
I doubt it, too. I mean, and unless it's one of those situations where somebody is just such an ass that it almost makes them appealing to you because that's just some weird thing that we have in our minds. That guy was gross. I don't think she was like, ooh, but I mean, who knows? Mm-hmm. But I just am like, ugh, he's gross, and he's sleazy, and he's hitting on everybody, and he's cheating on everybody. I mean, he's a sleaze. From pretty early on, the sheriff's department, the DeKalb, I think it's DeKalb. The DeKalb Sheriff's Department seemed pretty quick to call it a drunken accident, and really didn't want to treat the area as a crime scene or the situation as a possible crime. More, they wanted to be like, well, she got drunk and fell off a cliff, so let's just go on about our lives.
Yeah, they, like, determined everything within, like, 2 minutes, I swear. They were just like, yep, case closed.
Dead from being drunk. The autopsy revealed that there was blunt force trauma to her head, and she had sustained multiple injuries, such as a broken nose, broken fingers, and a compressed spine, which are injuries that could be consistent with either a forward fall or some sort of violence, for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't really know the compressed spine thing until yesterday, and it does make me wonder what in the heck happened.
Can you determine if those injuries were sustained before or after being dead?
I guess that's a good question. She had almost fully symmetrical bruises and marks on her back, which are really weird. It's really weird to me that you have these big bruises on both sides, and then there's this little circular kind of contusion, or I don't know. It's darker. These two little darker circles at the bottom of each of those bigger bruises on her back. Very symmetrical. Not something I think that would occur just naturally in nature.
And I was trying to rack my brain at, like, what do you take camping that could have caused that? Because I don't see anything in nature. Even if you were to, like, be pushed up against a tree, are there two knobs on the tree that are completely...
No.
No. Is there something in the bottom of a canoe?
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Or something that maybe if they in fact did have her face down in the canoe, as we'll talk about at some point, maybe they had something on top of her to keep her
from
falling out or covered or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it might have, if it was actual bruising though, it would have happened when she was alive, so that wouldn't be the case.
Right.
Versus just lividity, but I think it was actual bruising, so that wouldn't have happened. And so anyway, so she also had bruises on the front of her, like kind of large bruises on the front of her thighs. Mm-hmm. She had very little water in her lungs, which would not likely be the case if she fell from the cliff alive and into the water. You know, dry drowning is a possibility. It does happen, though it does typically occur with young or old people or those that are in poor health, you know, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I just don't think it did, if you're asking me. So she was a former lifeguard, as I mentioned earlier, so she knew how to swim and knew what precautions to take in the water. It wasn't like she was unfamiliar with water and swimming.
She could definitely like tread water if anything. But okay, so I was trying to find information on her hyoid bone because as we learned, that's like a big factor in strangulation and whatnot. And disclaimer, I am not kink shaming anyone, but it's important to know that Aaron has a history of liking to choke women during sex, and it got to a point where his ex-girlfriend Cassie had to like tell him to stop because it wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah, she said she like had to remove his hands because she couldn't breathe. Yeah. And also, did I even say that? They find later when a second examiner looks at the medical examiner's documents from the autopsy that she actually did have hemorrhaging in her throat and her neck, which, you know, we can't really 100% determine how it got there, but that's a possibility for sure. There's a lot of like, oh, that seems like an awfully big coincidence type of thing.
Yeah.
That he really likes to choke, and here she's got, well, but who knows? So the police speculated that she fell off the cliff while she was drunk, hit the side of the cliff as she fell, causing her injuries, and suffered blunt force trauma as a result of the fall when she hit the water, and said that there was no foul play suspected, ruled it an accident. Cool. I just don't know how you can that quickly say such a thing. It's just pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Especially with all the other bizarre aspects of the situation. So her mother was notified of her death, and she asked to speak to the people she was with, but she was informed that they were questioned and released already. And then she began to question why that they hadn't notified the police when they realized that Lauren had gone missing. Also, from the very beginning, she contends that the clothes that Lauren was wearing were not hers. And I mean, I think she would probably know that, considering that Lauren lived with her. I mean, it's also possible that Lauren borrowed clothing, but it was kind of strange because the bra that she was found in, the straps were like really twisted up, and only the top clasp of 3 clasps was hooked. So to me, that kind of looks like someone hastily tried to put something back on her. I don't know. You know, the other part of that is the clothes that she was found and when her body was discovered were definitely not the clothes that she had gone to the bar in. So she had definitely changed or been changed for some reason.
Yeah.
Who knows why, but you know, if you did get in a fight with her or, you know, some sort of thing happened like that, maybe you would change your clothes because I don't know, man. Because your DNA was on them or something? I'm not sure.
Possibly.
So pretty immediately, Sherry, Lauren's mother, was contacted by the officers that were off duty, but doing the officer Yarchuk and the other guy that I can't remember the name of, which I'll say at some point. They contacted her pretty immediately and said that they did suspect that there was foul play and gave her full details of the odd behavior of the 3 quote-unquote friends and their different and changing stories. This obviously upset her. She requested a re-examination of the case, but she was denied. So Hannah had initially told Fox 17 News that the reason that they didn't alert authorities regarding Lauren's disappearance was because someone told her that Lauren went back to the marina and might have slept on a houseboat. And I'm like, still, again, this is another version of the story. And again, it's another unlikely scenario that she's sitting here trying to tell us, oh, she left in the middle of the night when it's completely dark and doesn't have a phone or anything. Somehow she telepathically contacted a friend who came and picked her up on the side of the cliff. Like, no, dude, that doesn't make any sense. It never would make sense. Stop trying to place her off the cliff. Like, she was on the cliff and she died. Let's not. Cassie Franks stated that she was also disturbed by the circumstances and attempted to voice her concerns and also provide the police or other authorities with Aaron's history, and that they didn't really give a crap.
Yeah, they just kind of blew it off, like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, she told them about his violent history, even provided photos of her injuries. He was in documents showing he was arrested on domestic violence charges for biting, choking, and pushing her downstairs during an altercation. That's another aspect that I didn't mention, which I will at some point, but I'm going to say it now, I guess, that there is allegedly a bite mark on Lauren's chest that I haven't seen a picture of. The people that are close to the case that have autopsy photos do say that they see it. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but so friends and coworkers of Cassie's during that time are also able to provide corroborating testimony that this is actually accurate, along with the police records, that he was absolutely violent. Like Shai stated a minute ago, he also, like we said, do whatever you want in your sex life. There are lots of fun things that might sound questionable if the wrong person does it. But here in this situation, Aaron liked to choke to the point where Cassie was no longer a willing participant in the act. So he would get a little carried away.
Also, too, I find it to be kind of relevant here. Aaron also had a weird thing for his women being asleep at the time that he came onto them. Like, he liked them to wake up to him, like, being on them and touching them.
Yeah.
So, like I said again, it's you and your thing, whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact
if
that
you're in agreement about it,
and the fact that he is the person that he is, and even LD, that guy with his friends that came up to the camp, said, I don't do Aaron Lilly. As in, he doesn't want anything to do with this guy. Like, whatsoever. Yeah. So, he has a reputation for being a creep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you and your partner are under the agreement that you're going to pretend to be asleep, or that you are asleep, I don't know. That's a tricky one. But regardless, if you have an understanding about doing that, that's one thing. But to me, the way that I understand the way she's saying it is that
unsuspecting.
He is kind of rapey. Like, it's a little rapey.
Yeah. So, dudes, do not think it's okay to ever wake a woman up that doesn't know, like, you.
That you're about to have sex with her. Yeah. That you're having sex with her. No. Not
do
okay.
it because you're rapey.
Yeah, that's
so
raping.
Wrong.
That is rape. Okay, so Cassie also stated that Aaron had run from the law before by going to Florida and moving in with his mother who lives there. So, just keep that in mind. She also said that Chris has a record and had been charged with 3 DUIs, including fleeing the scene of an accident. So the police department insists that the death is due to misadventure, and they refuse to investigate anything any further. A week after Wakefest, okay, a week after Hannah and Aaron decide to try to give their relationship a second go-round, they move together to Florida. 1 week.
Mind you, he was just hooking up with his other ex-girlfriend
at,
Right,
same time.
What? Okay, so let's marry him.
Yeah, that doesn't seem suspicious at all. Not at all. Besides the fact that you've been known to run away to Florida before to escape some sort of thing.
Or a crime.
So, Sherry, Lauren's mother, she has hired Sheila Wykowski as her private investigator. She went to Florida to speak to Hannah, and while she was there, another guy from the campsite, Brix Gambrel, that I spoke about earlier, was also there, and he immediately alerted Aaron at work to let him know that a private investigator for Lauren's mother had come to speak with Hannah. Sheila had to get permission to record the conversation with Hannah, which she did, and in it, her story on the day that Lauren died changes again. She states that Lauren went to pee in the middle of the night and fell. And I would like to ask, how would she know that Lauren went to pee in the middle of the night if Lauren was in the hammock with Chris and Hannah and Aaron were in the tent? You wouldn't even know because you don't see anything outside of your tent. Okay, so that in itself does not make sense. And in this case, why did no one report her accident to the authorities or anyone at all? Like, hello? In the middle of the interview, Sheila claims that Aaron continuously called and messaged Hannah, and at one point, they were on the phone together, and she could hear him tell her to shut up and stick to the story. He arrived home extremely early because she had been surveilling them for a couple days, so she knew their regular schedule. Yeah. And he got home super duper duper fast and super early and shut the whole interview down. So once he got home, it was over. So that's an interesting little detail. Her investigation also revealed that the initial autopsy failed to disclose the hemorrhaging in her throat that I mentioned that could have indicated choking or some other possible trauma in her neck. And when she asked the police why they did not perform a rape kit on Lauren, the police department's response was that she had a tampon in at the time of death, therefore she could not have been raped. Which I'm like, OMFG. Is this real life?
Right? So they're like, oh, she was on her period, but we find out later she actually wasn't.
Right.
So why the heck have a tampon in? And I'm just going to say this, and I know it's TMI, but if you're not on your period, you don't want a tampon.
No.
It is uncomfortable.
Right.
So,
like, mm-mm.
Yes.
In the state of Tennessee, the police have to request a rape kit, so they obviously didn't do it, and they're going to now cover their butts about the fact that they didn't do it in any way they can. But I find that to be extremely interesting because the PI, Sheila, she sent the autopsy information to a gynecologist of Lauren's who reviewed the samples from Lauren's uterine lining and reported that Lauren, like Shai just said, was not on her period at the time of death. So why in the world, who put that tampon in? Was there a tampon?
If she even had one in.
Right. Was there one? Did they say that to cover their butts? Did someone put one in to try to cover up something? Though you would think if she was raped and then they put a tampon in that it would only help preserve the evidence, I guess. Is that either way about it? They should have done a rape kit. What in the hell? Like, seriously? What in the hell? Are we living in 1872 and they're like, a woman can't have relations on her period? Like, what? Who are you?
If you're a drunk dude and you have your mind, I don't know, I can't speak for dudes because I don't know, but I just feel like this guy's a total idiot and a jerk, and I don't think he would necessarily even care.
Right, he wouldn't. And also, it doesn't matter because she wasn't on her period. So she didn't put a tampon in, period. You know? So it doesn't matter. Like, regardless, she didn't just go, well, you know, I'm going to be at Wakefest, so might as well just put a tampon in as like a preventive measure. Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know? So, like, and also when you're going to be in and out of water, the last thing you want to do is put on a tampon and just like have it hanging around. So, no. I don't know what the hell happened in that scenario. I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why. But that is what happened. So this is going to be where we stop for today. This case has so much info that part 2 is definitely needed.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate everybody that has gone and given us positive reviews. Please, please, please go onto iTunes or Apple Podcasts and give us a positive review. If you have actually listened to the episodes, I think that you surely can. But there are some real lowlifes out there that want to listen to like 14 minutes of episode 1 and complain about the audio, or there's the losers that listen to 5 minutes, hear me say that the Republicans were involved in Bohemian Grove, and then they want to cry about it for 15 minutes. So I would really appreciate it if we could counteract those negative reviews for people that clearly didn't even listen by having positive reviews from people who actually do, that are delightful and wonderful people. So that would be great. We would appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
That's really all I have to say. I'm like, I shouldn't complain too much.
I mean, honestly, too, like, hello, we're clearly, I mean, Ashley posted on Instagram, like, we're not a political podcast. I think, dog for president would be great. That's how much I care about politics, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's, like we've said multiple times, it's all the same. It's the same thing. Dressed in a different ugly outfit.
Right.
So regardless, that's not the point of the podcast in the first place. But like, you know, sometimes stories are going to include details about people that maybe were like, oh crap, that sucks.
Yeah.
I wish that wasn't the case. But you know what? Life is like that. And we'll continue to make delightful podcasts that normal, wonderful people enjoy. So anyway, thank you everybody. We're going to be back with part 2 of this story. Quit. We won't have that long of a break before you get the next episode. episode. So have a great week. We'll be back next week, and creep it real out there.
Keep it real, y'all. Bye.
Bye.